Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Nigeria's inflation drops, but cost of living remains high. That's what we're discussing right now. The National Bureau of Statistics reported a drop in Nigeria's inflation rate to 24.48% in January 2025, down from 34.80% in December 2024. Government officials hailed it as a sign of economic recovery, with claims that food prices and fuel costs were stabilizing. However, many Nigerians see little relief as essential goods remain expensive. A 50 kg bag of rice that cost about 100,000 naira in December now sells for about 80,000 to 90,000 naira, still much higher than 60,000 naira a year ago. Transportation costs also continue to rise, keeping daily expenses high. Experts warn that while inflation is slowing, prices are not decreasing. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry noted that stagnant wages and high unemployment mean lower inflation rates do not translate improved living conditions. Now, joining us this morning to have a conversation on this is HUSSEIN K. OLANREWAJU. He's the MD Hack Technology Management Services. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we've seen a drop with the inflation from 34.80% to about 24%, almost a 10% decrease, right? But we're not really seeing it reflect in the daily lives of Nigerians or the prices. First things first, some people right now, the government are celebrating this. Is this something that we should be celebrating at the moment and saying, yes, it's leading to economic recovery?
Thank you. I don't think it's something we should be celebrating at the moment because we still don't have kind of a fixed direction that we're going. Everything is still fluctuating because what actually translates to inflation drop to the common man is when it affects the common man's life directly. Just like you said, the cost of rice it's not significantly low as we used to be, still between 90 to 100,000, 80 to 100,000 naira range or thereabout, still significantly not make any changes. You see, a lot of factors actually contribute to this. One, we don't have a stable fuel price and fuel pump price, which actually speak to the cost of transportation, it speak to cost of running power to maintain the business and what have you. And all these costs will actually be diverted to the commodities that we are actually buying, because to transport from, let's say, from the north to the south where people need these goods, it costs money. And the cost of fueling they actually not change. The little changes that we have been experiencing, 15 naira difference, 20 naira difference, it doesn't actually significantly make any money because the cost of to full a tank of 70 liters tank, which used to be less than 15,000 naira before, they're paying more than 70,000 now. So all these things are actually what contributes to the cost of living. So for now, it's not something we should be celebrating at all.
Okay, so many Nigerians obviously are still struggling with these high prices. Why do you think that the inflation drop hasn't translated to our current reality? Because you've already stated that, cost of transportation, so fuel, but could it be a price control thing that's the reason why things are still so expensive in the market, regardless of what this is saying on paper? Because on paper, we're seeing 24% inflation, but if you look at things, the prices of goods and services, nothing has really dropped at all.
So unfortunately, price control can actually not work at this moment because the determinant of the economy, which is the informal sector who contributes to over 60% of the economic workforce, the government do not have accurate data of what their activities are. So I give it an example. The cost of inflation that is being fluctuated is only on perhaps you can see the stability of naira is gaining kind of strength recently, and some analysts actually weigh it down to Dangote refinery operating to full capacity, meaning that we're having foreign direct investment through that business angle of oil and gas. But the reality of what we are seeing is different from what is actually happening in the real life, in the real market in Nigeria. So I give an example. The bag of rice, you can get data from Nigerian Port Authority based on probably if there is importation of such rice, or probably data from some non-merchant in the market. But the main people, the farmers who are actually farming this rice, farming these commodities, the government do not have accurate data of them, and they cannot have a control of the data you don't have. So it's difficult to actually do price control in that level. So everybody, probably by the time they get the goods, or probably a farmer farm at the cost of 1,900 naira to $1, and now he's harvesting, he will definitely sell at the rate to profit in, as at when he got all those raw materials at high rate. So all these factors actually comes to play. So we need to begin to harmonize this data, get the accurate data, support these MSMEs, specifically the informal sector. But by the time we can control, have at least significant 70-80% control of informal sector's data, then we should be able to, begin to have a price control, just like we have during the days of Ambode in Lagos State as the Lagos State governor, partnering with Kebbi State to do lake rice. Systems like that, we can have a price control because government determine what the output and the input is. So if you can have an harmonized data like that, it helps us. And then don't forget the fact that a lot of other factors like power tariff is increasing, and funny enough, it is not even available. People are willing to pay for power, but the power is not available, the tariff is high. We are also seeing increase in telecom, that is communication as well. So as things are beginning to increase, definitely it will translate to high cost in the market because everybody will want to cover the cost of expenses. And we can see banking system as well. We're having a lot of charges that is coming on board, and all these things will also affect the market, because if I'm going to be paying extra to access my cash or to access finance, definitely I will also translate it to collecting this cash from the consumers or from the users or customers, as the case may be. So we are actually in a high dependent economy, and for us to go drop the inflation, we have to start producing. And it's not as if we're not producing in Nigeria, we're actually producing at the large scale, but there is no system to harmonize, to help people build, harmonize all this data, guide people, and also bring things forward such that we can actually say, put a standard price tag, a standard packing system, a standard system in general that will make us the economy.
Okay, so with all of this,
is what we need at the moment.
Okay, fantastic, what we need. But you mentioned a few things, obviously telecoms tariffs, fuel, cost of transportation and whatnot. So with all of these indices, right, how come, on paper, they're saying that inflation has dropped with about 10%? Are these things not supposed to are they not supposed to be consulted to get whatever figure it is that reflects the true standard of living in Nigeria right now? Because, of course, you said price control cannot work with all of these farmers because we do not have enough data. And most times it's always a case of demand and supply. So when they see that there is a high demand for these things, they will sell it at whatever price rate that they feel like. But if we put all of this into consideration, should we be seeing a drop as much as this when it comes to the inflation rate in Nigeria?
So yes, it's very possible that we see this kind of rates because the average available data actually could translate to this. Because when you look at a cost of dollar, naira stability that we are experiencing, it can actually be mirrored a little bit to the inflation rate that is being released. Because as at December, we are still having a dollar to naira to about 1,700 or there about 1,800. And now we are having it at 1,500. That is a significant drop of like 200 naira or thereabouts. So this actually could contribute to the gain in the drop.
But that is just one thing that is being put into consideration, don't you think? Or maybe a few others. Isn't everything supposed to be looked at holistically before you get to a report?
So that's why I'm saying that I appreciate data, because the data that is available is showing Nigeria as a dependent country, meaning that a lot of transactions will be doing, a lot of food, commodities, and stuff like that that will be putting into yardstick to calculate this are actually working on the rate of dollar, and which means if the rate is dropping, the cost of getting all those things in will also drop, and which could translate to like, okay, the cost of living is reducing and then inflation will also drop. That's what I see in basically. But in the true sense of things, the data that is made available and being used are actually not the true data that actually reflect that into Nigeria economy. So, and that is an aspect that is so very worrisome that we need to look into beyond the rates or beyond any figure that is being released.
So let's look at interventions, solutions. What should the government be doing right now? Because it's great, that this is on paper. It's great to say, yes, inflation has dropped. I'm sure everybody will want inflation to be less than 20% or even 10%. Amazing. But if it doesn't reflect in the standard of living in Nigeria today, then nothing has been done, to be honest. So what does the government need to do right now to ensure that, inflation is dropping when it comes to the rates that we see on paper, but of course, the standard of living for Nigerians are better, and people now have the purchasing power to be able to buy things, because I cannot believe that a bag of rice is still going for as high as 80 to 90,000 naira. In December, it was for 100,000 naira. So what's the margin? What's the difference, to be honest? So everybody wants a better standard of living in Nigeria. What should the government be looking at right now?
Okay, thank you so much. I think beyond what the government is doing, government has to be strong on acquiring data, or probably bringing the informal sector data into the system, so that it will not to tax them heavily, but at least to understand what they're doing and understand their market and help them. So data, the government needs to be strong on data. Another thing the government needs to intensify more efforts is the cost of transportation. The government has to come in heavily to probably subsidize or find a way, just like we are seeing some transformative support within the metropolis of Lagos, where we have train services and improve transportation system. It needs to go around across the country such that it could help, more especially interstate. Like we are having diesel shortage at the moment, and we are moving goods and services from state A to state B. If we are using train system to move these goods, I believe it will reduce the cost of transportation. And once the cost of moving these goods from state A to state B is reduced, it will also drop the cost of commodities within the country. And again, the government needs to also intensify more efforts in collaboration. That state A has, state B should be able to have a proper handshake. I give an example, like let's say Aba market, we have people who are making shoes, and they are importing iron skin from the likes of Portugal and outside the country, basically. Meanwhile, in Kano, Kaduna, we have iron skin half baked that they are exporting it. And why don't government have an handshake and be able to source the raw materials from outside, from within the country,
right?
So that it will reduce the exactly. So in essence, what I'm saying is collaboration between state governments. Each state governor should collaborate to harmonize the resources we have in-house, and we should look beyond grants. We should look beyond free money. I don't see any reason why all those traditional cash transfers of 50,000, it doesn't change anything. It even makes us become more poor. We should be more productive, more handshake where people will be productive and create more jobs themselves. I think that's the way forward.
How about collaboration with, the private sector as well and businesses? Looking at the fact that inflation has dropped. I mean, the inflation rate has dropped to about 24%, but price of goods and services still remains high. There's still the high cost of living in Nigeria. And we've just been looking at, ways to whatever we're seeing as the rate of the inflation, ways for it to reflect with our current reality in Nigeria. So we're hoping that the government will definitely have certain interventions in place and not obviously having to, give transfers to people or money or handouts, but looking for ways to ensure that, yes, we can, have proper price control in Nigeria, where we can have proper data, where we can see that, as the inflation rate is dropping, the prices of goods and services are also dropping, and people are able to have the purchasing power in Nigeria, because that's one issue that we have right now. What 70,000 naira could do for you as of, 5 years ago is not the same at the moment. In fact, as of 2 years ago, it's not the same at the moment. And we're still talking about how our current minimum wage is at 70,000 naira, which can barely do anything, because we're just speaking on how a bag of rice is about 80 to 90,000 naira. In December, it was 100. So we've not really seen a major price reduction in particular, but hopefully as things improve, because one of the questions I was going to ask was, looking at the trajectory of things right now, are we going to see any improvement? Are Nigerians going to feel any relief at some point? And I'm sure that's what everyone is waiting for. Everybody is just looking and hoping for that to happen. Anyway, this is where we have to wrap it up on our show today. We've been speaking with HUSSEIN K. OLANREWAJU, is the MD, Hack Technology Management Services. And we've just been looking at the fact that Nigeria's inflation has dropped, but price of goods and services remains high. This is where we say goodbye on The Breakfast this morning. Thank you so much for having The Breakfast with me. As always, my name is Rume Paulson. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Good morning.